Welcome, leaders, teams, and those ready to take charge of their energy. It's Kelly Buboltz, your guide in workforce energy management. Burnout is not just a buzzword, it's a symptom of deeper root cause stressors. We're here to stop waiting for the change and start leading it. It's time to reclaim our energy and lead our days with intention and purpose. This is my 5-year anniversary after my burnout collapse and my start of my recovery. And so I wanted to make this a special moment to go through some of the things that happened that I still remember today, 5 years later, because burnout didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly, disguised as productivity and responsibility and just one more push, just one more quarter, just one more year. But recovery didn't start until my complete collapse. And that's where this whole business model and message came from, because all the signs were there leading up to it. When I began my recovery, everything was there right in front of me. So now I'm guiding others in how we can engage that productivity and energy while preventing burnout. Now, recovery did not start with these big life changes in this highlight reel and dramatic boundaries, because human behavior dies hard. Change, habits, new things, it takes a little bit of time. So it started really learning about the truth, about energy. Unlearning some things that I commonly believed was the right thing, which turned out to be the wrong fit or the misalignment for me on how to live by it. It started with learning about the truth, about energy and how to manage it, and unlearning some of the most common beliefs that I was living by. And that was a huge hurdle. And I want to go through some of the top lessons during my recovery that might aid you on yours. That when you're exhausted and it seems like there's this big hurdle in front of you, that there's an explanation why. And I've had to work through that. And that's the insights I'm bringing for you today, is that you might not recognize it now, but you will recognize it as you continue on this path, that this was a hurdle that you didn't need to go through, that this is a hurdle, now you have the tool to climb over it. Again, everyone's burnout recovery is a little bit different, but these were definitely my top 4 over the 5 years of recovery and energy management that I had to either unlearn, reframe, or reroute into a new path that I didn't even know that I needed. The first one is burnout isn't a time problem. It's an energy problem. At the start of my recovery, I was doing all the time tools. I even got time management and productivity books, and some of them were aiding in my business and I thought in my energy. But then on those low days, or those days that I had like the perfect calendar, I was exhausted. Or weeks would go on where I would be on point, organized, optimizing my productivity, and I would be exhausted. And it seemed like I was just repeating the same burnout cycle, like getting sucked back into that stress addiction, and I couldn't understand why. And it's because it wasn't a time problem. Burnout wasn't a time problem. It was an energy problem. It was Kelly's capacity problem. So even with better planning and more structure and tighter routines, getting ahead, planning and scheduling things out, even with free time intentionally on my calendar, I still felt depleted. And that's because burnout happens when output exceeds your natural energy for too long. And you can have open space in your schedule and have all the time tools and organization and still be deeply exhausted within your system because you're not truly recovering. So recovery truly began for me when I stopped asking, how do I fit this in? How do I optimize my productivity? What time tool do I use? And I started asking, what does my energy actually support right now? And then that question led me to how I worked, how I rested, how I made decisions, how I had my conversations. And it definitely was more sustainable because on my low days, I honored that. I didn't overpack myself because I understood my energy capacity limits, and I repaired that relationship with energy versus forcing it through. Second lesson of my burnout recovery is I didn't need more motivation. I needed recovery. I'm a naturally motivated person. I'm optimistic. I'm bubbly. And even with all the things I was doing, I still felt yuck, dragged down. Like some days I didn't want to get out of bed. I would start something and not want to finish it. I would chart a new path or be around new people and still feel yuck, right? What I needed was recovery. There was a period I thought that something was wrong with me because I just couldn't get going. And I waited for motivation to come back. I tried to inspire myself. I told myself to push through again. And I didn't realize that motivation depends on my capacity, similar to lesson 1. When your system is depleted, especially your nervous system, motivation doesn't disappear. It's uncommitted because your body is still stuck in that survivorship mode. It hasn't healed the things that it needs to run in an optimal fashion. I had motivation, but it was disappearing in my body, conserving the energy that it had left because I didn't allow the space to actually recover in the categories that I needed to. So I had to stop. And it doesn't mean that I went off the grid for 2 months. I was working. I'm still a mom of 3. I had to just make intentional space to stop overriding this exhaustion and disregarding my capacity and start listening to it. Once I started prioritizing that recovery over motivation, things slowly started to return. That motivation could ooze through because I didn't have this depleted system that is on overdrive. It felt lighter. It brought clarity and initiative that felt more natural. And I think why this lesson was so important is because it wasn't out of force. It came from space to recover. So as you're navigating your recovery journey, I want you to know that a big piece of it is allowing that space to acknowledge where is your capacity, what is actually going on, and those natural rhythms and motivation will come through. Now, the third one was interesting. This actually took a couple years before I recognized it just from my observations of my behaviors, the things that just continually didn't progress compared to everything else. And that's rest doesn't restore your energy when your nervous system is unsafe. So your core nervous system feels unsafe because I was resting. I was acknowledging my capacity. I was taking breaks. I was intentionally planning my calendar so I didn't overbook myself. And I was still exhausted. And I found out rest and recovery are 2 different things. If my nervous system was stuck in survivorship mode so long, it's stuck in that state of alert. That's a natural rhythm, even though unhealthy, it knows. So it wants to continue on. It wants that autopilot. So actually taking like a nap or sleeping in or not overpacking my days, it wasn't restoring myself because I was only focused on the rest. I had to restore that internal pressure that I put on myself, that new rhythm, unhealthy towards stress addiction and overpacking and overcapacity at any point in time, that pressure point and pattern that I put on myself, I had to recover that. True recovery didn't begin with just rest. It began with more safety, proving to my nervous system it can go back to its natural rhythms, that we have to break this stress addiction pattern. So that meant I had to start navigating urgent demands that would instantly send my nervous system back into that stress addiction pattern. It meant that I had to start being very intentional about transitions, like how I land after school before jumping into family mode, switching from that work to family mode or family mode to work mode. I had to be very intentional about those transitions because, again, it put my nervous system back into a stress state. And that's the pattern it was craving because I was in it for so long, even though it was unhealthy. And there's a great saying that I love to repeat in my mind is that your body will crave a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. I'm working towards the heaven, right? The healthy state, the nervous system that can regulate. And it craved the pattern I was under, high stress, for a very long time. So any point, transitions or those quick demands would put my state right back into that old pattern. So I had to be very intentional about how I transitioned and how I dealt with those demands. Letting my body have repetition in the new space, in the new pattern I'm trying to create, helped it start to release from that stress addiction state, from that survivorship mode. And it began to feel safer. And then when I could rest, I wasn't on alert subconsciously. I actually did rest. So know that if you feel like you're resting and you're not recovering as well, know that there's some restoration in your nervous system that needs to happen. Now, the fourth lesson that was small, but it compounded over the years was low energy was leaked. not lost. For a long time in my beginning of my recovery, I thought my energy was just gone. Like, I'm never going to get my spark back. I'm never going to get myself back. And when I started having to address where does all my energy go, I found out that I wasn't losing energy at all at once. It was leaking quietly all day long. And it felt like a balloon with like a pin needle leak in it, right? Where the balloon starts off like plump and in the air, and then it gets that pin needle and it doesn't fall all at once, but it begins to get like wrinkly as that air leaves the balloon, and then it begins to go to the floor. And then by like day 3, it's on the floor in this like crumpled up, disgusting, wrinkly looking latex balloon. And that's how I felt, is I could go on for days. But then like that 3rd day, the 4th day, I mean, I had enough, right? Irritable. I just couldn't make decisions, brain fog, just exhausted. And I realized I'm like the pin needle in the leaky balloon. And that's how my energy was leaking, is it was physical, telling me, Kelly, you're exhausted every day. But then it's also the overthinking the conversations that I had in the day and replaying decisions that I made, and creating to-do lists of things that maybe I don't even need to do, that mental cognitive overload. And I wasn't monitoring frequently enough on how these leaks were happening. So I was basically on all the time. Even though I was grooming my notifications and how people contact me, I was always on. My nervous system was always on. My body, my brain was always on. So it wasn't just one single task that drained me. It was multiple mini tasks throughout the day, the things that I was piling on and not regulating. So burnout recovery didn't require me eliminating, rerouting everything that costed my energy. It was about becoming aware of what I'm spending my energy on, realizing that, and rerouting the things that aren't as urgent, aren't as important, either off my list, out of my head completely, or scheduling it out in a time that has more capacity to do so. So awareness became before the change. And when I began addressing those energy leaks, I actually gained more capacity over a longer period of time. Because of those frequent check-ins, because of that awareness, I was able to reroute the things that don't matter away and focus on the things that matter. Now, burnout recovery didn't require me to become a whole different person. I definitely did change. I rerouted parts of my lifestyle, relationships that I had, environments that I'm around. But that all came after I learned how my energy was working and how to respect it, repairing that relationship with my energy. That included also repairing relationships with my sleep and stillness and space and presence. I mean, a couple years ago, that's ick. I couldn't even do that for 5 minutes. And now I could sit and just be without stimulation and noise and earbuds and pings and pongs and doing a hobby even. I can just sit and be still. I stopped treating exhaustion as my personal failure. I stopped chasing motivation. I stopped assuming rest alone was enough. I stopped ignoring quiet ways that my energy was being leaked and drained. In retrospect, looking back on the last 5 years, recovery became less about fixing myself and more about how I respond to stress differently. If you're in this place right now of burnt out, stressed out, don't know where to go next, you're functioning, but you're tired, rest doesn't fix it, I want you to know that nothing is wrong with you. Your system is just asking for something different. Learning to listen what's going on with your energy, your capacity, your body, your cognitive, your emotional and relationship load is where the recovery really begins. Today's step matters. It's in the micro moments that real change begins. Managing your energy isn't about shame, blame, or disrupting your lifestyle. It's about the small, intentional choices to reclaim that natural energy. If this episode hit the mark for you, share with others. This journey doesn't have to be lost and lonely, but exciting and full of new paths. See you back here to continue the adventure.